On this edition of Native Report, we attend the grand opening of the Thunderbird-Wren Halfway House, a recovery program for men and women. We then learn about what role a doula plays before, during, and shortly after the birth of a child, and we meet Thomas Peacock, who found a new career in retirement as an author, editor, and publisher. We also learn what we can do to lead healthier lives and hear from our elders on this edition of Native Report.
Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Blandin Foundation, the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation, and the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux Community.
Welcome to Native Report. I'm Michael Lagarde. Thanks for tuning in. The Thunderbird-Wren Halfway House is a state-of-the-art facility and is the first Native American-owned and operated treatment center in the United States. Counselors provide culturally specific treatment designed to promote cultural identity and wellness for its clients. The new facility offers a safe and sober home for them while they transition back into the community. With the cutting of a ribbon, and as well-wishers cheered, the Thunderbird-Wren Halfway House officially opened its doors to a newly constructed facility in the Morgan Park neighborhood of the city of Duluth, Minnesota.
In downtown Duluth, where we were, it's not a neighborhood, you exist. Here, we're gonna be part of this community. We're gonna get involved with whatever the Morgan Park community has. About 10 years ago, in our 5-year strategic plan, one of the things that we really looked at is we needed a new facility. So we've been looking at this for a long time, but nothing is free, nothing is cheap in this world, and we sat and looked and looked and looked. About 3 years ago, with the board's blessing, we sat down and made a determination, we need to redo our halfway house. The old facility, which was in downtown, was in disarray. It was gonna cost us well over $1 million just to get the thing up to code. And why would you spend $1 million to a 100-plus-year-old building that you're never going to get it squared? So we looked at possibly building on the same site. And the only problem with building on the same site, we're going to have the same number of beds. And we're in a crisis. In our communities, we've been seeing this crisis going on for 10 years. And we realized 20 beds was what we currently have, just wasn't going to cut it. So then we spent time looking for some land so we could build a new house. With the help of the planning department of the city of Duluth, they helped find us this piece of land here, which was a piece of tax forfeited land. The St. Louis County and City of Duluth have been wonderful. The city council and mayor were very supportive of this project. They know what we do. They're very familiar with our halfway house, which is located, a block from City Hall. At this, the old one is, but they know what we do and they see the success that we have, and they're very supportive of furthering our mission of helping the people that we do help.
The new facility is co-ed with one half of the building for men and the other for women, but they do share commons areas on both floors. The Thunderbird-Wren House and its affiliated recovery program, Mishkowazin Treatment Center in Sawyer, Minnesota, offer to its clients a culturally based recovery program.
We have a grieving ceremony that we help clients with. We help them get in tune back. We help them with their trauma because a lot of them are dealing with their pain. So we help them with their pain, and we have a ceremony that help them out through that process. A lot of the clients don't know a lot of these things that we talk about. Like, let's say we talk about the clan system. So the clients get introduced to the clan system again, and also they get introduced to the language. Like their name, Ishinakaz, and the Duodim clan, and also in Dunjaba, where they're from. So we teach them those things. It's really important to understand where we come from and to know our history. People are in pain, and we have to come together and figure out where that pain's coming from, either it being sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, or spiritual abuse. So we have to touch on those things. We have to talk about them. We have to get the client to be intimate about life again. So it's really important that we help the client, treat the person as a person, let them grow.
So this is the women's wing. There's 10 beds in each unit, 10 downstairs, 10 upstairs, so this is their commons. So right now we have 40 beds. The old place had 20. We have 40 beds. It is broken into 2 wings. Each wing has 20 beds, 20 for men, 20 for women. So this whole project ended up running us about $6.7 million when all was said and done. Of that $6.7 million, 99% of it came from our own coffers. We had money in the bank, and we ended up going to the bank and borrowing the rest of it. We did get, about 1% of our donations. We ended up getting about $12,000 from private donors. We are made up of a board of directors of the chairperson of 7 reservations or their designates throughout the state of Minnesota, and gives me guidance and assistance and is there for us for those, and they help us with overall, but they are not responsible for supporting us financially. We are our own financial entity.
The staff of 17 will include 4 CD counselors in addition to Joe, who splits his time between the Thunderbird-Wren Halfway House and Mishkausen Treatment Center. There will always be a need for such facilities, but the staff is heartened and determined to help clients achieve a life of sobriety.
We always help the people that we serve. Currently, 22% of my staff are former clients, and they see the value of what we do, and they want to become part of this family. We're in a crisis. In our communities, we've been seeing this crisis going on for 10 years. We are just ecstatic to finally have this brand new, beautiful building to make a difference in the lives of the people that we serve. They deserve this newer building. They deserve to have cleaner, newer surroundings, to have land outside to be able to do something which is more than a couple of square feet. We have space where we can build, we can garden, we can have some of our own space and be part of the community, and we're just ecstatic for that.
Hair loss, or balding, is a condition that has affected people since time immemorial. Old black and white Western movies would show shysters selling cures from a horse-drawn wagon. One of the cures invariably would be for hair loss. Alopecia is the medical term for hair loss. While this is most common on the head, hair loss can occur anywhere on the body. Baldness on the head is the most common concern, and this is more prevalent in men than in women. The most common type of hair loss is male pattern or female pattern baldness. In men, this starts at the forehead and is shaped like the letter M. In females, this tends to be a widening of the part line, and both of these tend to be hereditary. Sometimes hair loss is in smooth, coin-shaped patches. This type usually just affects the scalp, but sometimes can affect eyebrows and beards. Sometimes the skin can be itchy or irritated before the hair falls out. Sudden hair loss can be caused by a physical or emotional trauma. We typically lose about 100 to 150 hairs a day, and in this type of hair loss you can see much more when washing or combing your hair. Patches of scaling in the scalp with hair loss can be a sign of ringworm. This is not a worm, and that phrase really freaks people out. This is actually a fungal infection called tinea capitis, and it's treatable. Sometimes this can come with redness, swelling, broken hair, and oozing areas. Full body hair loss can result from medical treatments such as chemotherapy for cancer, and this hair usually grows back. There are quite a few things that can cause hair loss. The most common cause of male and female pattern hair loss is hereditary. Hormonal changes such as pregnancy, menopause, and thyroid problems can cause hair loss, and some of these are temporary. Medical conditions can include alopecia areata, which causes patchy hair loss, infections such as tinea capitis, and a hair pulling disorder called trichotillomania. Some medicines can contribute to hair loss. Treatments for cancer, autoimmune disease, heart problems, depression, gout, and high blood pressure can all have hair loss as a side effect. For most of these medicines, this side effect is not common, and these are all conditions that need to be treated. Changing medicines from something that's working well isn't always an easy decision. Stressful events can cause a condition called telogen effluvium, and this is usually a temporary condition that gets better over months. Some hairstyles can put lots of tension on hair and cause a condition called traction alopecia. Harsh chemicals and heat used during styling can also cause inflammation of the hair follicles and cause hair loss. This can be permanent if scarring occurs. Non-traditional tobacco use? Yep. Some studies have shown a link between smoking and baldness in men. There are treatments for hair loss, and not all of them are covered by insurance. There are over-the-counter and prescription medicines that might work, and you need to keep taking them to maintain any gains. Hair transplant surgery is an option and is expensive and sometimes painful. Some laser treatments are relatively new, and there have only been some small studies on them. Different styling options, head shaving, wigs, and hair pieces are all options that are worth exploring, and there are many that just let nature take its course for non-treatable hair loss. Be careful of salesmen in horse-drawn wagons and some of the things on social media. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. As always, talk to your healthcare provider for guidance. And remember to call an elder. They've been waiting for your call. I'm Dr. Arnie Vainio, and this is Health Matters.
Next, a doula is a trained professional who provides continuous physical, emotional, and informational support to a mother before, during, and after childbirth to help her achieve the healthiest, most satisfying experience possible. Join us now as we learn more about how all families and mothers-to-be can benefit from having a doula on their team.
Every mother-to-be and every new mother needs a helping hand, and many are familiar with the role a midwife can play in the birthing process. The role that a doula plays may not be as familiar. While most people think they have similar functions, doulas and midwives have different trainings, duties, and certifications.
For the Fond du Lac Doula program, you have to be a Native American person that has also had a child. We have hired local Native women that have had children and breastfed their children because we also cross-train our doulas to be WIC peer breastfeeding mentors. So that's a unique piece of the program. And we also put them through, we have them take a certification training through Doulas of North America. The doula is a non-medical professional, so they're like a professional birth coach. And so what they do is they support families, and some people might think it's just for the mother, but really it's for the whole family and the whole team. And they support the whole team by offering comfort measures and maybe practicing those comfort measures before. And they might even talk about breastfeeding, or what are you going to do to prepare for afterwards, and meals and things like that. And so they might even offer to get together and make lasagnas and put them in the freezer, or things like that.
Rebecca, who is also a public health nurse, has since moved on to attend graduate school. She said one responsibility a doula holds is to preserve the memory of the pregnancy.
And so we do belly casts, we make belly button pouches for the little belly button stump, that the umbilical cord that falls off afterwards. And that's a cultural piece that we've recently incorporated.
All right, Christy, will you tell me what a belly cast is?
Yeah, so what we are trying to do is preserve the memory of the mom being pregnant. And so one of the things that we do with the doula program is do belly casts when they're getting close to delivery. And so they can always have this memory of what they were like right before their baby came. So what we do is, we put some Vaseline or something on the mom's belly so that the plaster of Paris, when we apply that and take it off, it's not going to stick to mom. And then it'll harden, and they can decorate it any way they want. So they'll always have this memory. And then like this one, we put a hook on the back so they can hang it on their wall.
We also do placenta prints to preserve that memory of the pregnancy and the baby and everything. If we have teachings, or if we know somebody in the community that has teachings around what to do with their placenta, then we can refer them to somebody in the community as well.
Rebecca and Christy both emphasize that while a mother-to-be is in the hospital or at home, and while the OB, nurses, or midwife might be in and out of the room, the doula is a constant presence.
And studies have shown that just by having somebody in the room, not even doing anything at all, just having somebody there present consistently, people have better and more positive outcomes during labor and delivery. Our doulas are a group of doulas that have the support of each other, and then they also have the support of the doula supervisor, which is through the Fond du Lac Community Health Services program. And they have 24/7 on-call support from the public health nurses through Fond du Lac. And they also have the support of other medical professionals within Fond du Lac. We used to have people in our communities that were supporting families. We had men that were coming to births, and they were helping with the fires, or they were helping sing songs, or they were helping tell stories to their babies when they were born about their creation story. And we had other women that would gather around our women and that would also sing songs, and that would help them, with medicines or whatever they needed during their labor and delivery. And that's basically what a doula is now, but it's more about empowering that family and that person that's in labor to use their voice and to have whatever birth experience that they want. And so the doulas can really support the mothers, whether they're having a cesarean or a VBAC or a natural birth without any medication on board at all, or an epidural. However, whatever that person sees their vision, is that's how they're going to be supported. Clients that come to us must be eligible for Fond du Lac services, and so that could mean that they're a local Native woman, local Native person that's pregnant, or they're pregnant with a Native baby. And there's different eligibility requirements, and sometimes it can get confusing, and so there's an eligibility line that they can call if they need more information. With our program, we don't charge anything. It's all covered through grant funding, and we're also looking at third-party billing as well. Doulas are for everybody, and everybody deserves to have a doula. Doulas can also be there to support the birth partner, the birth team that is with the laboring person. And so that might mean saying, oh, why don't we give her some ice chips right now? Or she looks thirsty, do you want to be the person that offers her water? Things like that. The doulas know that they already have a relationship that's built up, and that they have a loving and trusting relationship with that person that they invited in their birth space. And so they're going to really work to make sure that that relationship and that connection stays intact, and that they don't take away from that, and make that a beautiful experience for the whole family.
I grew up in, I'm from the res. I was born there, and my father was in the American Army, so I was raced down to Texas the first couple of years. He was in the Army Corps of Engineers, of all things. And we came back, and we lived in Niagara Falls, Buffalo, building all that industrialization. My father was a crane operator, so was his father and all his brothers. So we hoisted the steel to most of our men who were iron workers. So, we grew up with some economy, because we were all worker bees. Back and forth to the res, because it's only 60 miles from Niagara Falls, New York, our reservation. So we celebrated the Jay Treaty and our border rights every weekend, every week, and still do today, try and keep that Jay Treaty alive.
So you were born on the Canadian side?
I was born in Canada, but I grew up mostly on the American and lived mostly. I spent years in Canada developing my theater career as an actor, and that's where I broke into TV and all that. Went to school over there a little bit.
Retirement for many people may mean they have more time for leisure activities or for travel. But for Thomas Peacock, retirement meant opening a new chapter in his life. He opened a publishing house geared towards children's books written by Native authors and illustrated by Native artists. And this is all done in the solitude of his living room.
As the morning sun shines into Tom Peacock's living room, he sits in his rocking chair as he reads through his emails. Tom is the owner of Blackberries and Blueberries Publishing House, a business venture he developed after retiring from the University of Minnesota Duluth.
I spent many, many years at UMD, almost maybe a little over 20 years. And I retired from there in 2013. You know, as an academic, and particularly at UM Duluth, I had to publisher pairs in order to go through the tenure thing. And writing primarily academic articles and textbooks, that kind of thing. did a couple textbooks on teaching Native kids, that kind of thing, and many kind of scholarly academic articles. And then I decided to make a switch as soon as I got the tenure to writing case studies about working in Native country. It was a natural kind of transition. I had been writing poetry for years and then made that transition to academic things. And once I got out of academia, I made a complete transition myself to writing fiction. A few years ago, my wife and I sort of sat down and said, well, what are we going to do with this retirement thing? We have to figure out a way to continue to give back. You know, we've been foster parents and teachers for many years, and we thought, well, how can we continue to give back? So, well, we know something about the publishing industry, from the writer side, and said, let's try our hand at this publishing thing. So we put down a big list of names and thought we were going to decide on, and she came up with Blackberries and Blueberries. Initially, that idea came from something many years ago. I had worked with poets from the Minnesota Poet in the Schools program, and there was a second grader, and I think over on the White Earth Reservation, who had submitted a poem, and the title of it was My Heart, and this is the gist of the poem completely. My heart, a bear eating blueberries. And I thought that was just extraordinarily beautiful.
This transition from being a teacher, an academic, to a writer of poetry and general fiction, and then to a publisher had a learning curve to it. Especially so since Blackberries and Blueberries Publishing is a nonprofit.
We had no idea of the process, and so we started soliciting for illustrators and writers. We set up a web page, and we decided to focus in on Native children's books. We decided to keep it within the confines of the region, so the Minnesota, Wisconsin, Dakotas, Iowa, Michigan, Ontario, keep it within the region, within the tribes located within that region. I did a business plan. I initially went through some of the training that was offered by the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe, the business development program, small business development program. We went to a couple of trainings for that. We weren't looking for profit anyway. We were looking for a way to offer a way for Native writers to do their work. It's such a small niche. Native writers have a hard time finding publishing outlets. I know that as a writer. Native illustrators have a near to impossible time finding work as illustrators, and this is a way for them to get their work out there. Our schools have very few good Native children's work out there, very few authentic kinds of work, so we could meet all of those needs at the same time. It's great to take original work, someone else's original work, and to see it from idea, to get a rough manuscript and to make a real story out of it, and then to work with an illustrator, to tie those things together to form a single story is just outstanding.
Content is Tom's focus, and his wife Betsy is the copy editor and marketer, and they are finding a market for their publications.
We've been selling most of our books to bookstores and to Native programs, that kind of thing. We haven't pushed the school market, but that's our plan, and we're going to do that this fall. We're going to begin doing some pretty heavy marketing to schools, and we've been doing events, book events all spring and summer since these books came out. We've done, I can't even count how many, and we've been on the road every weekend doing these things. Betsy is the marketing person, obviously, you know, that's her skill. Our books are selling like crazy, and she is very persistent, and we have, you know, recovered what we've put into it and have a bit of a you know, a bit to begin thinking about our next books. As far as we know, we're it in terms of Native publishing companies, and there really is nothing else out there. And so we know that we're filling a niche. We know that we're giving back, and we're going to continue to crank out, you know, books that'll be read for years and years by Native children.
For more information about Native Report or the stories we've covered, look for us on the web at nativereport.org, on Facebook, and on YouTube. Thank you for spending this time with your friends and neighbors across Indian country. I'm Michael Lagarde. Join me next time for Native Report.
Rita Aspinwall is an enrolled member of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and is an ICWA social worker with Fond du Lac Social Services. Ernie Stevens is a member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin and is a film and television producer.